Welcome to a tale woven with threads of danger, desire, and the supernatural. I'm AC Dawn, your narrator and author of Crystal Clear, a paranormal Halloween novella. I plan to release a chapter each day leading up to All Hallows Eve. Keep in mind, this isn't your typical professionally produced audiobook. It's a personal reading and a chance for you to hear the story as it echoes in the mind of its creator. If you're eager to leap ahead and hear the entire tale, you can follow me on my Ream subscription for free and gain instant access to the full recording. But for now, let us take our first steps into a world where ancient evil stirs and the fate of humanity hangs in the balance. Chapter 1. It is done, Jason said, wiping the blood from his mouth as he stood, his wife sprawled, unmoving, at his feet. I shook my head. It is only just beginning. Once every century, she will rise. The magic that binds her must be renewed. Jason raised his gaze to mine, horror etched on his features. I must kill her again. You must, or all of humanity will suffer. I paused, surprised at the pang of sympathy for the vampire at my feet. As with all magic, balance must be maintained. Your queen shall have the opportunity to change her ways. With each rising, she will be offered a chance to live in harmony. Jason sighed and gently ran his hand over Mariana's face, closing her eyes. She will never change. An eternity trapped in the underworld may inspire her to think differently. I shrugged and turned away. Where will she rise next, witch? Jason blocked my path, standing with his hands on his hips, glaring at me. This was the crucial moment, the moment history changed and the powers in the world shifted. I offer you a pact, Vampire King. I will use my sight, as will my descendants through the ages, to provide you the location of Mariana's rising. In exchange, you will end the bloodshed between our people. Vampires will no longer prey upon witches. I held my breath, waiting for the answer. The blood spilled in the war between our people could fill rivers, and for the first time, witches had the advantage. If the Vampire King knew where his queen was to rise, he could meet her and send her back to hell before she unleashed her bloodthirsty terror on the world. Without that knowledge, he could only wait for news of death and destruction, and would then face his queen with an army at her back. Jason nodded without hesitation. I have no wish for our feud to continue. Let us stand as allies in this common goal to protect the innocent. Upon my oath, I give my word that henceforth, vampires will not take a witch's life. Around us, vampires and witches alike gasped, casting uneasy glances at each other. I drew a blade across my palm and held it out to the Vampire King. Witches will henceforth provide you with the location of your queen's next rising, and will not seek retribution for the witches killed at the hands of the vampires. Our people are at peace. My last statement hung in the air, dramatic and final. Jason slashed open his palm with his teeth and joined his hand with mine. A cheer rose from the crowd and echoed around the amphitheater. For a moment, I closed my eyes, imagining the historic occasion centuries ago. The magic started with that pact, still held firm to this day. The power of the spell, its vitality, boggled my mind. I turned with Ethan, the actor who played Jason, and we bowed as the supporting cast joined us. The polite applause washed over us, and I breathed a sigh of relief. Another year done. Nice job, everyone! Alex, the director, joined us on stage, taking his bow along with us. Ethan, amazing emotion. I was hanging on every word. He clapped Ethan on the back and turned a beaming smile on me. As always, Addie, perfection. He bust a kiss on each of my cheeks like we had just finished a production of a Broadway show. It's my 5th time. If I can't get it right by now, I should give up, I said, turning away from Alex and his creepy air kisses. We hurried off stage to allow the next skit to come on. The Slaughter Creek Coven, under the guise of the Ladies' Auxiliary, put on the fall festival every year, starting with a series of skits about the legend of the Vampire King and the town's bloody beginnings. Founded as a haven for witches, bloodshed and conflict filled the town's history. Though, in the modern era, witches and humans lived side by side. The humans loved the mystical legends and the energy that filled the town. In their heart of hearts, They knew it was more than fiction, but were happy to live in their comfortable delusions. The witches, however, would never forget, and the festival was their opportunity to remind everyone of their roots. I cringed as the screaming sounds of the next skit penetrated the horse trailer that served as my dressing room. I was glad I graduated from that particular skit, the witch burnings of 1690. With a shiver, I changed into my next costume, relieved all I had to do for the rest of the evening was run the fortune teller's tent. The swirling boho skirt swished around my legs, and I tied a colorful bandana around my curly hair. Squinting into the makeup mirror, I painted on a fresh layer of blood-red lipstick and lined my eyes with a thick black line, pulling it out past the corner for a bit of drama. Satisfied, I headed to play my next role of the night. Katie met me as I stepped out of the trailer. I gave my bestie a smile and accepted the steaming corn dog she offered. The stick still held its heat, and the golden batter smelled heavenly. Fresh out of the fryer, she confirmed, and took a big bite of hers. She yelped, fanning her mouth as her eyes watered. Hot! Oh, too hot! As she hopped around, I laughed and handed her my bottle of water. They say patience is a virtue. I used my best coven mistress voice. Katie took a swig of water and rolled her eyes. Why didn't you warn me, Miss Fortune Teller? Oh, wait, I'm getting a vision. I closed my eyes for a moment. When I opened them, I gave Katie a wry grin. I saw in the future you will burn your tongue again because you have no patience. Katie laughed. I've waited all year for this. She waved her ketchup-covered corn dog in the air. Yeah, and a few more minutes would have been just too much. I took a cautious nibble of my mustard-dipped corn dog, and when I found it didn't leave third-degree burns, I took a big bite. I groaned with pleasure at the sweet and salty deliciousness. What did you think of the play? I asked around my mouthful of corn dog. Katie shrugged. Alex definitely put his own spin on it with all those vampires wearing those things over their faces. Probably the creepiest one I've ever seen. You were fabulous, of course. Thanks. I hope Nellie can take it over soon. Since I was the youngest of the Buckley women, I was stuck playing the unnamed witch who struck a bargain with the vampire king until one of my nieces got old enough to take over the part. As very distant descendants of that witch, though I never understood how we knew that since history didn't record the witch's name, we held the responsibility for the role. I didn't mind it too much, though I would have rather played the vampire king. The noble tragedy of having to kill his wife over and over to save his people and all of humanity stirred the romantic in me. Well, since Nellie has a forward vocabulary, I think the role is yours a little while longer. That video your brother posted on social media of her riding on her broom in her princess dress was precious. What can I say? She has the Buckley flair for the dramatic. We polished off our corn dogs, and Katie filled me in on the best vendors at the fair, including a new shop offering a variety of rare crystals. And before you ask, I don't know. Katie forestalled my questions about benitoite, a rare crystal I'd been searching for. They have tons of different crystals, so maybe? Is your mom all set up? I asked, making a mental note to stop by the crystal vendor's tent early the next morning. Benitoite was known to awaken psychic abilities. Yeah, she's gone all out this year. Katie's mom ran a local homeopathic shop that supplied humans with all kinds of remedies that they never expected came from a witch. On Samhain, she always had a booth set up like an old apothecary, with bottles and powder that bore names like wolf's teeth or unicorn horn and contained natural ingredients with healing properties. We stopped to fill our mugs with homemade root beer that frothed and fuzzed with dry ice. Corn dogs and root beer were the best part of fall. The fizzy bubbles danced on my tongue as I savored the sweet and spicy brew. Mom found a new treasure. She wants you to come over and check it out when you get a minute. Well, that piqued my interest. Katie's mom shared my enthusiasm for antiques. My ability to see into the past of an object made running my antique store, Adelaide's Attic, more interesting. Not that my mother appreciated that. Her disappointment that I was the first witch in the Buckley line not able to see the future obscured everything else. I don't know if I'll get by tonight or not, but I'll drop by the store next week. Oh, it's okay if you don't get by the tent tonight. I'll save a vampire kiss for you. Katie grinned with a wink. I laughed and shook my head. Aren't we a little old for vampire kisses? The vial of peppermint extract, cinnamon, and magic made your head spin while a sense of euphoria washed over you. It only lasted a few moments, but it was an unforgettable feeling. They were one of the most popular items at the festival. Well, considering the lack of any other kisses in my life, I'll take what I can get. I couldn't argue with that. Neither of our love lives had much going on. I blew out a sigh as a sudden unease that had nothing to do with my lack of action in the bedroom rose within me. We walked parallel to the graveyard, and as we wove through the tents and crowd to the outer edge of the festival, there was nothing but a falling down iron fence to separate me from the spirits. "Why did they put your tent all the way over here?" Katie asked, sensing my shifting emotions. "You should have had them put you on the other side." I shrugged. Communing with the dead seemed to be a natural part of my ability to see into the past, but it could be a nuisance. People, both living and dead, desperately wanted to know things about the other side. And once they knew I had access to the spirit realm, they couldn't help but pester me for information. Only a few people knew about my sensitivity to the dead, and asking for a special spot in the festival would have drawn attention where I didn't want it. "It'll be okay. They'll stay over there, and I'll stay over here, and we'll get along just fine." I avoided cemeteries as a rule, but on Samhain it was a matter of survival. As the veil to the spirit realm thinned, restless spirits rose in droves and could overwhelm me in minutes if I wandered into their midst. "Well, call me if you need anything, or if it gets to be too much. I can stand in as the magical, mystical Adelaide." Katie twirled around and bowed to me with a flourish. "With that much enthusiasm, you should run the tent." I appreciated my friend's offer, but the tent was another Buckley tradition. My mother handed it off to me years ago, hoping it would kick-start my future site. It hadn't, of course, but it had made a significant dent in my wallet. I shopped all the Halloween clearance sales for mystical decorations and trinkets to dress up my act. "No way, that's all you, sister. Besides, I have vampire kisses, eye of newt, and werewolf fur to sell," Katie said as we parted ways at the entrance of the big canvas tent that would be my station for the evening. "I'll see you at the meeting later." I waved and hid my frown as I ducked into my tent. A sense of foreboding gnawed at me. I plugged in the lights that transformed the gloomy tent into a mystical nook and took a deep breath, seeking calm. As a final touch, I flipped on the fog machine. It spit out a fine mist that clung to the floor and the edges of the tent. I stared into the crystal ball that would reveal absolutely nothing. It was from Target's post-Halloween sale the previous year, and it added nicely to the atmosphere of the fortune teller's tent. I wished with everything that I had that just once I could glimpse the future like every other woman in my family. Something was shifting, changing. I could feel it, but it remained just beyond my sight. I pushed my melancholy away as my first visitors of the night peeked into the tent. A pair of teenage girls stood nervously in the open doorway and looked around with wide eyes at the twinkling lights and swirling fog. "Is this where you get your fortune told?" With a mysterious smile, I slipped into the role and beckoned them forward. "Indeed it is. Come in, my dears, and let's see what the fates have in store for you." Thanks so much for listening. As the shadows grow longer and Halloween draws closer, we will continue to unravel this tale of danger and desire. If you can't wait for tomorrow's chapter, you can follow me on my Ream subscription for free and unlock the full story right now. But if you prefer the suspense of waiting, join me again tomorrow for the next chapter. Until then, remember, the fate of humanity and a single heart hangs in the balance. Tomorrow, we venture further into the darkness.